The United States Air Force is the oldest and smallest it's ever been. Its leaders also don't know whether the service has the time, money, or people to put enough planes in the air to compete with and defeat China, at least not without losing too many pilots. The problem is too big to solve for the Air Force alone, so it's collaborating with the Navy, Marine Corps, and private industry to come up with the answer: Collaborative Combat Aircraft, or CCA. The XQ-58 Valkyrie from Kratos was an early candidate into the program. It's also the only one with any real-world flight time.
So really, it is a fighter-like performance. If you want to think of it as a F-35 without a pilot in it, that's what you've got.
There are other CCA candidates in development as part of the DoD's open competition. The Air Force, Navy, and Marines agreed to some basic fundamentals to speed up development and delivery of the craft. CCAs need to have a common aircraft architecture and autonomy architecture. They also need common communications links and ground control segments. Basically, the service wants a standardized robotic plane that can take direction well, while also operating with and talking to other assets in the battle space. Initially, the loyal wingman will be paired with F-35s and with the next generation air dominance fighter once it's airborne. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall says he wants thousands of CCAs flying within the next 5 years.
What we're trying to get industry to do is to mature technology and be creative, and then demonstrate to us what kind of capability they can provide and why it's cost effective. And that's how we're going to be selecting which ones we carry to the next phase of competition.
The CCAs, like a lot of modern weaponry, are designed with modularity in mind, meaning you can trade out or upgrade sensors and software on the fly depending on the mission. This disaggregation of components also helps keep costs down. That's the next major design feature. They're supposed to be cheap enough to sacrifice if necessary, but they also need to be beefy enough to carry out the missions.
I think the most important thing we have said from day one, this is about affordable mass, right? You're not going to achieve mass in any form if it's unaffordable. And we keep that in mind in how we execute this program.
Brigadier General Dale White oversees the Fighters and Advanced Craft program for the Air Force. He and other generals involved in the CCA program spoke during a media roundtable at the Air and Space Forces Association's Air, Space, and Cyber Conference in National Harbor, Maryland. These officers say they know price per unit needs to be taken into account during development, but there's more to cost savings than dollars and cents.
If I had a choice to either lose an F-35 with a pilot or lose an aircraft like a CCA, I'd rather lose a CCA. And so those are the types of trade-offs that are being enabled with the new technologies that are coming online that frankly we couldn't do before.
For reference, new F-35s cost more than $110 million each. CCAs will need to cost considerably less for the program to be viable. Digital engineering and new manufacturing methods will help. Aside from price, the next major challenge for CCAs is deciding how much decision-making power or autonomy to give them.
There is still no Department of Defense definition of autonomy. We've been talking about CCAs and autonomy for 2 years, still no definition.
That's Mike Paco Benitez, an Air Force veteran and the director of product for Shield AI, a key player in the growing field of autonomous piloting.
NATO has a definition. It basically says, I have programmed a thing to do a mission within its constraints, and it can evolve and adapt in the environment without further intervention of a human.
Deciding how much autonomy to give CCAs is not easy, especially when lives are depending on their performance, not to mention the very real fear many people have around creating AI-enabled weaponry. In June, the internet was set ablaze when stories of an AI agent killing its operator started surfacing. The incident turned out to just be part of a hypothetical thought experiment, but it did show just how charged of an issue this is. With no formal definition from the Pentagon, Benitez and others in the field borrowed from the Society of Automotive Engineers when it came to distinguishing between levels of autonomy. Levels range from 0 to 5, 0 being the lowest and 5 being the highest level of autonomy. Level 1 is for basic assistance tasks, things like cruise control in your car. Level 2 is for partial automation, think of a self-driving Tesla. These levels here, 3 and 4, that's where we should be thinking about CCAs, because that's where conditional and high levels of autonomy come into play.
I would argue level 3 should be the minimum requirement, and level 4 is really what we should be shooting for, which is a mission-based, here's your goals, here's your objectives, here's your risk, within those constraints, execute.
It's unlikely any armed CCA or AI-piloted device will ever reach level 5. By law, the US military needs to have a human in the kill chain. Of course, figuring out how much autonomy to give a robot plane capable of carrying lethal payloads depends on the types of sorties we want them flying. If there are at least 2 CCAs per pilot, like Secretary Kendall said, one could be a sensor carrier and the other a munitions mule. The former allows its human pilot to see targets beyond the horizon. The latter can deliver a killing blow without revealing the pilot's position. But how do you get a human pilot to put that much trust into a machine?
It's just like a radar. And if a fighter pilot had never heard of the word radar, had never had any academics, and you gave him a screen and you go, hey, you're gonna fly around, and when these symbols show up on your screen, just trust us. There's something there. It's probably gonna kill you, it may not, but you should probably do something about it. How do I trust what's on the screen is real? Like, well, you know, because over years, you've been indoctrinated with training, you understand radar theory, you get some academics, and most importantly, you understand the capabilities, the limitations, and the attributes of that algorithm or that hardware and software.
And there's no place better to understand the capabilities and limitations of your wingman than when flying with them, virtually or otherwise.
I'm sure that when the operators start to fly these and work with them and test them in different scenarios, that it'll be much clearer what the opportunities are that exist and maybe some limitations, and then we'll react to it as we have with every other platform.
Thanks for watching. In this time of media mistrust, Straight Arrow News is on a mission to bring you unbiased, fact-based reporting. So to make sure you get journalism that you trust, like and subscribe to Straight Arrow News below. It goes a long way in telling YouTube we're the kind of news that you want to see more of. And for all of our content, go to straightarrownews.com.